Hello, and welcome to a very special episode of the Lines podcast. My name is Matt Brown, joined each and every week throughout the course of the football season by Brett Collson. Of course, Brett Collson is the man behind TheLines.com, PlayPicks.com, and of course, all of the other podcasts and everything that we do here at The Lines and PlayPicks. And we've actually gone ahead, Brett, and we have put down the $1,000 over at Circa in Las Vegas, and we are in the Circa Million Pro Football Contest, and we're going to talk through our 5 picks on this podcast every week and just kind of give some rationale for what we're thinking, how we're going. And of course, if you're not familiar with the Circa Million, $1,000 to enter, 5 picks against the spread every week. It is $1 million to first. There are 4 additional $50,000 quarterly prizes that will be awarded as well. As of Thursday at 2:30 p.m. in the afternoon, there were 1,643 entries, which means there will actually be $85,750 added to the quarterly prize pools there, Brett. So they made their nut. It was a guaranteed prize pool. They would have had to come up with the money if they did not get 1,500 entries. And here we are looking like they'll probably, I imagine, get another 100 or 2 before this thing is all said and done. So well done for Circa. Well done for Derek Stevens. Well done for this contest in general.
Yeah, seriously, I did not think they would get there. And now with every sign up, that quarterly prize that we were so fond of when they announced it, it's increasing with every entry. So it gives people incentive to keep trying throughout the whole season. Even if they start slow, you start 1 in 19, you're still in it for some of the quarterly prizes through the rest of the season. So I'm excited. We're going to have the Lines entry in there, so definitely keep an eye out for our picks and where we are on the leaderboard.
Quarterly prizes will go to the winners of weeks 1 to 4, 5 to 8, 9 to 12, and then 13 to 17. You really only have to go on a 4-week hot streak, and you can bring home, what will be more than $50,000 now. There will be significantly more in each one of those quarterly prizes. So pretty awesome little deal. And again, congrats on them for getting there this year. Because, I mean, listen, getting people to come and plunk down $1,000 to enter a handicapping contest is not the easiest thing in the world, especially right out of the gate, and they were able to do it. Now, one of the things I do want to tell people here, Brett, is we're going to pick these, but the lines that we're given are set on Thursday, and so the lines that we have to bet, because the contest provides the lines, could be completely different from where these lines end up by the time kickoff comes on Saturday. Of course, we are having to make these picks as well without having a full arsenal of information. Now, that changes a little bit here for week 1, where we have had all season to gather information, but of course, starting in week 2, we're going to have really quick turnarounds on these things, and we're going to have to be making picks kind of based off of things that we expect to happen, because, again, we're not getting full injury reports until 90 minutes before kickoff, and our picks will have to be long submitted before then. So while some of these lines might seem quote-unquote stale to you, and while some of these lines might shift dramatically about whether a player plays or not, we're not going to have that luxury, so we're going to just have to kind of speculate a little bit throughout the course of this contest.
Right, and we don't actually have to submit our picks until Saturday. Is that right? Or is it Friday night?
Yes.
Yeah, so there is a chance. We're going to wait to the last minute possible to submit our picks. So there is a chance, depending on what happens with injury news on Fridays, that we will change our card. Obviously, we'll let you guys know if that does happen. But for the most part, the decisions we make here in real time on the podcast every week will be on our 5-team card.
Brett and I will submit 5 picks each week. If any of one time, one of our picks, we are going to kind of call our makes the card pick, and no matter what, that is the pick that is going to make the card for each of us. And then if any of the picks that we submit match, that pick will automatically make the card as well. And then from there, if we still don't have 5 picks that make the card, we will talk through the rest of our selections and go ahead and make a pick from there. We are rational human beings. We feel like we can get through this. We feel like we can make a case for some of our other picks and or be open-minded enough to listen to the other person and have their pick maybe make the card as well. So it should be a fun season, should be fun as we move on here. And let's start out with your makes the card pick, and that is Colts +6 on the road at the Chargers.
Yeah, anybody who listened to the podcast last week when we talked about Andrew Luck and the ramifications of his injury or his retirement announcement, knows that I'm buying low on the Colts. I've got division title bets on them. I've got win total bets. And, of course, I'm in on week 1 as well because I think they are undervalued here against the Chargers as 6-point road favorites. LA, probably the worst home field advantage in the NFL. I think they're in for some serious negative regression this year. The offensive line is still among the worst in the league. Phillip Rivers, a year older. They've got no Melvin Gordon. And most importantly, no Derwin James in this game. He's out with an injury, a guy who could take over this game with a backup quarterback on the other side. The Chargers have some serious personnel issues in the secondary. I think Brissett's going to be just fine behind an elite offensive line. Some interesting line movement on this game, too, since the Andrew Luck announcement. More than 2/3 of the tickets have come in on LA, but the line's moving the other way. We're actually getting the worst number that I've seen at 6 here at Circa, but I really don't care. I think we've got a contrarian play. I don't see a lot of people putting the Colts on their card. I love Indy in this spot, and I'm excited to have them on the card.
Yeah, I mean, this was a serious consideration for me, and really the only reason it didn't make the card was, like you said, was because of the number at 6, where, I've seen this obviously as high as 7, certainly 6.5 out there. Why they decided to settle on 6, I'm not really sure, but as you mentioned, all those points incredibly valid here. And if you talk about the worst home field advantage, it's not even a home field advantage, right? I mean, it's basically no advantage whatsoever. It's almost a neutral site game for something like this. So definitely, and really the only reason it didn't make my card here was, as you mentioned, just the number itself, but still happy to have it on the card, certainly. Like the Colts here in this spot. Again, I think that if you kind of look at how this is going to play out, I think Colts here first few weeks of the season might be a team you're really going to be looking to get on here as people continue to buy into the fact that Andrew Luck deciding to retire was just the worst thing in the whole wide world for this team, when this team was actually really and truly was built to win. And Jacoby Brissett certainly, I think, can be adequate enough to make sure that this team is not getting blown out of the water week in and week out. My pick to definitely make the card here, Brett, is going to be Lions -2.5 on the road against the Cardinals. My rationale for this is I think this is the best time that we're going to be able to get on betting against this Cardinals team for how incredibly terrible this defense is, and how, there is still going to be growing pains for one Kyler Murray. You and I are both believers in Kyler Murray. You and I believe in his talent. Certainly from a fantasy perspective, we're all over Kyler Murray as well. But I think people will finally be able to see, people who aren't really into preseason, people who don't really follow it as closely as we do, are going to finally be able to see with their own eyes just how terrible this Cardinals defense is. It is a sieve. You have Patrick Peterson, who is the only really impact player on that defense, who's going to be suspended for the first several weeks of the season. So they are without him on this defense as well. And I'm just trying to buy into this first week here of under a field goal for a veteran quarterback in Matt Stafford going and being able to navigate a win. And again, just 2.5 is the number here in this one, a field goal at least win over what I consider to be a bottom 3 defense in the league, if not maybe the absolute worst defense in the league.
My man, this one actually landed right outside my top 5, and we're on the square side, but that's okay because, like you said, this Cardinals offensive line is a disaster, and Kyler Murray's never been in a situation where he's running for his life. We've never seen that from him before. So I think this is going to be and I would not be surprised if the Lions just run away with this thing on the road. I really like this side.
So we did have 2 picks that actually synced up here, which is really nice. So that means we will have 4 of our 5 picks that automatically make the card this week. And we'll start out with the Bucs, which is a pick'em at home versus the 49ers. So for me, I'm looking here, and Brett, I think this is something you and I have talked about on some of the previous kind of preview podcasts that we've done, is just the fact that, this Bucs offense is going to be pretty dynamic. There's playmakers all over the field. Jameis Winston has Mike Evans to throw to. He has Chris Godwin to throw to. He has O.J. Howard to throw to. And they're going to be a pretty bad defense, so they're going to have to continue to score here. And that's like really the only thing here that gave me a little bit of pause. But at the end of the day, I think this 49ers defense is very much lacking, especially in the secondary, where this Bucs team, obviously, as we just mentioned, is going to be so incredibly potent with these wide receiver duo that they have. It's with the 49ers having to travel here for the first game of the season. Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't played a meaningful game in a very long time. If you remember, he got injured, fellas, at the beginning of last season. So, I mean, yeah, he's been in the preseason here, but he hadn't played a snap that mattered in a very, very long time here. If you're going to tell me that it's a pick 'em with two teams that I think that are going to have pretty bad defenses, and I have to lay my pick on which offense I think is better, I think it's unquestionably going to be the Bucs offense to me.
Yeah, I think this line's off by a couple points. The one thing that does terrify me here is the matchup between the Bucs offensive line and the 49ers defensive line. But we have to trust that Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich are going to be able to scheme protection for Jameis. Because if he has a clean pocket, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and O.J. Howard are going to just shred this defense. There's nobody in this secondary who can defend those wideouts, and Howard is a matchup nightmare for Quan Alexander and those linebackers over the middle. So I expect a lot of points in this one. I think the Bucs end up scoring 30 plus. I think that's going to be enough to get the job done.
Yeah, it is. I just look at this situation where if I'm just picking offenses here, which is basically what I'm doing, I think both of these defenses are pretty bad, then I'm going to take that Bucs offense pretty much 9 times out of 10. So definitely glad that we matched up on that one. The last one that we matched up on, so again, the fourth pick of our 5 here is going to be the Ravens -6.5 on the road against the Dolphins. And this is one that you were kind of reluctantly going to kind of put on the card here, but I did the same, Brad. I mean, at the end of the day, I think whenever we take a look at how this game really and truly breaks down, you have a Dolphins team who is punting on the season. And look, I think that's fine. I think that's rightfully so. I think that is smart for them to do that. And so I think that what we're going to look at right here is a Ravens team that has to win by a touchdown on the road at probably the absolute worst team in all of the NFL. I think that this is an improved team under year 2 with Lamar Jackson under the helm. I think that the running game is just as potent, if not better, bringing in Mark Ingram here. And I think that what we're going to see is probably the only thing I'm little scared about here is not them covering for the majority of the game. It's just a backdoor cover from the Dolphins here. I think the Ravens get up 17, 20, 21 points, something like that in this game. I think the only thing would be them taking their foot off the gas, obviously not trying to get Lamar Jackson hurt in this game, and maybe us getting caught with a backdoor cover from this Dolphins team.
Yeah, I did feel kind of gross taking this Ravens team, a team that does not light up the scoreboard. Most of their work offensively is done on the ground, and they're laying nearly touchdown on the road. But I think they can score with their defense in this game, whether it's by a pick 6 or just a turnover that puts them in good field position and allows them to score points that way. This Miami offensive line is so bad. There's going to be penetration all game, and with Ryan Fitzpatrick in negative game script, I mean, this could be a blowout. So, I mean, I could see him throwing 3-4 picks in this game against a very stout defense. I worry this is going to be a popular one in the contest. I think people are going to be fading the Dolphins, but I don't really care. I think this is a pretty damn good spot for the Ravens against the team, like you said, that this just might be tanking.
Yeah, and again, like I said, I don't blame them. I mean, they're still in a division with Patriots and Tom Brady. So if they're stockpiling draft picks and trying to kind of build for 3 years from now when they hope Tom Brady is retired, I mean, listen, it's better than just sitting there and winning 5 games every year and just getting the crap beat out of you every single year by that division. So at least it's a strategy, right, to stockpile and try to build. I mean, I guess I can at least give the organization a little bit of credit.
Yeah, I like what they're doing, but right now, at this point in time, this roster top to bottom is probably the worst in the NFL. So yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with the Ravens here in week 1.
So one interesting thing here, we're looking at the picks that we were submitting here. We had an opposite side here. Pretty interesting. So I just wanted to talk through this one. This one probably obviously is not going to make the card since we're on opposite sides. You liked Panthers plus 1.5. I like Rams minus 1.5 here. And I'll let you start with what you liked about the Panthers at home as 1.5 point dogs.
Yeah, I actually love this one. I liked it more when it was 3, when we could get Panthers plus 3 at one point. But I think this movement sends a lot of people off Carolina in the Circa contest, and that makes up for the 1.5 we lost on the opener. But I like Carolina money line in this game, so I'm pretty happy with the 1.5. I think the Panthers have a sneaky good roster this year. They made improvements on the offensive line. They signed Matt Paredes at center. He was the big offseason get in the market, and then they added Gerald McCoy to an already pretty stout defensive line. So I'm excited to see what they can do, especially with the rookie Brian Burns coming in to see if he can make an impact in the pass rush, because we've seen what happens when you get pressure on Jared Goff. That dude melts, and he's got 2 rookie offensive linemen protecting him in this game against this Panthers front. I think he could be in for a pretty long day. And then on the other side of the ball, the Rams is pretty vulnerable up the middle of the field. They have nobody who can contain Christian McCaffrey in the passing game. And I like the matchup with DJ Moore against Marcus Peters, too. I think all signs point to Carolina here for me. Even though we're not getting the best number, I don't see this being a popular one in the contest. Interested to see or to hear your thoughts on the Rams, though.
Yeah, so I actually think the Rams are kind of being a little disrespected in this spot, and this is not – I'm huge on the Panthers this year. I have Panthers over. I have Panthers futures on winning that division. I actually really like the Panthers a lot, but – really, the thing that sticks out to me is the fact that Cam Newton has a foot injury. The thing that makes Cam Newton is his ability to move, his ability to avoid to avoid trouble, get outside of the pocket, be able to get stuff done with his legs. This team is a much, much better team when Cam Newton is rushing for 40-plus yards in a game than when he's not. And I feel as if we are in a situation here where they're telling us one thing, but the situation is another. I mean, this was not very long ago that he had this foot injury for this Panthers team. I can't imagine they are going to risk this early in the season having Cam Newton out there trying to do Cam Newton things. I could be wrong here, but again, week 1 becomes a lot of speculation. Like we're saying, we haven't seen these teams on the field yet. We figure how we think these game scripts are going to go. We're listening to beat writers. We're listening to coaches. But at the end of the day, we don't really know. I mean, actually, though, we did see on Thursday night, we did see the beat writers, everything that they were saying did play out, as they were saying that Mitchell Trubisky looked like he was not progressing. It looked like, if anything, maybe he was regressing. And if you follow that, hopefully that led you to the Packers plus the points in that game. I know you and I were both on that side of the game. We could have picked that game. So just another thing about the rules for the contest here, if you're listening and you're not familiar, you can pick the Thursday games, but what happens is if you want the Thursday game, you have to submit your full card at that time. And again, in the NFL today, information is just so incredibly valuable, and we live in an information age right now where we're getting more information than ever. So, Brett, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I really can't see us ever getting a Thursday game on our card.
No, it's not going to happen. And it's frustrating last night because that one would have been on our card for sure. I'm all in on the Packers. I'm all in on the Packers this year. So, I mean, that would have been on our card. But,
Definitely.
Yeah. You can't submit Thursday. You just can't do it. There's too much that happens on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, we even get on Saturday until 11 a.m. Pacific. And so even late night information that comes through on a Friday or early morning Saturday, stuff that we can take into account as well. So pretty interesting how that works, and unfortunate that that's the only way to get Thursday game on your card. But again, it changes the strategy, so I totally get it. If you're able to pick the game on Thursday, you can kind of alter your strategy, whether you get the Thursday game right or wrong, if you didn't have to submit all your picks at the same time. But getting back to this, I mean, listen, at the end of the day here, I think what we're looking at is we still have a full-on Rams offense that made it to the Super Bowl last year. You have every piece of that. You have Cooper Kupp coming back fully healthy here. I think the Todd Gurley situation has been blown out of proportion here. I mean, the fact that he's going to get fewer carries than he did last year is not really that big of a deal because he needs fewer carries. They were running him into the ground and his body wore down towards the end of the season. So I think that people are making a big deal about him getting reduced carries when his reduced carries basically just puts him at the workload still of a bell cow back here. And we know how talented he is there. I mean, you still have Aaron Donald up front. You still have some troublemakers there on the defensive side of the ball for the Rams. For me, I feel like this, and especially with this number shrinking down to 1.5, which is what was so attractive to me on this Rams side, is would have been a play that I would have liked to have made. So pretty interesting that we're on the opposite sides here. I definitely understand what you're saying about this Panthers team. Like I said, I've kind of bought in on them as far as moving forward and season-long bets and everything like that. I just have a little bit of question about the health of Cam Newton, how effective he's going to be here in week one, whether he can be his true self. And I do feel that the Rams are getting a little looked over here when basically they're returning the entire Super Bowl team from last year.
Yeah, look, the Cam thing is certainly a concern. Look how bad he was late last year playing through injury. They were better off with Heineke and that Allen kid. I mean, you don't want him playing through injury. I mean, that's not going to end well. So if he is actually hurt, I certainly don't want anything to do with the Panthers here. So from that side of it, I'm okay with this not being on the card.
So the two other picks that we have here, and these will be ones we'll talk through and eventually decide on. You went Titans plus 5.5. That is, of course, on the road at the Browns. I have the Giants plus 7 on the road at the Cowboys here. I'll start, and then you can kind of come in with your thoughts here on your pick. If you're ever going to buy in on this Giants team, it's got to be in the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season. If you believe that Eli Manning has a case of the olds, which I think we all do, the time to buy in on this team would be early in the season before, his arm strength were to go down anymore, before, any sort of injuries were to take place, anything like that. I'm certainly not a trends guy at all. And if you listen to these podcasts moving forward, I actually kind of poo-poo on most trends here. But, one of the things we do have is a very long track record of this Giants team under Eli Manning playing this Cowboys team very tough. And I don't know, they just seem to get up for this game every year. Getting a full touchdown here also was very appealing. I do understand there's a pretty big push potential for this one, with it being a number that I could definitely see the Cowboys winning by right on the number at a touchdown here. So I do understand that we might be putting ourselves at risk of a push in this thing. But if I'm going to buy this Giants team, make a contrarian play with the news of Zeke coming back, I think is going to inflate people's thought of this Cowboys team when he probably only plays 25, 30 snaps in this game. And really and truly, the number was where it was, whether Zeke was going to play or not, because that's just what kind of the market valued this Cowboys team against this Giants team here. So for me, a little bit of a contrarian play, a little bit of if I'm going to buy in on one of these contrarian teams with the Giants, I certainly want to do it very early in the season here, and certainly before they make the move to Daniel Jones, when they're going to start getting all kinds of attention their way, and probably these numbers will be in favor of us to bet against them, because people are going to say, oh, well, they finally made the move, so that's that's awesome. And then I think the lines will actually be inflated the other way. But that was my thinking here in this one with taking the Giants plus 7 on the road at the Cowboys.
Yeah, I thought this line was completely fair. I do have the Giants, but mostly just from the game theory side of it that you talked about. I think this is a pretty good leverage spot. I think the Cowboys will probably be pretty popular if the line does end up moving. It was definitely interesting to see that it didn't move after Zeke signed. So the running backs don't matter. That community definitely pounding their chests after that one. But I still think even with Zeke, this line looks I feel like it should be 7. I mean, do you think this is off at all?
I think it's pretty close. I mean, I think the Giants team here, I mean, just from a talent aspect, isn't completely washed, right? I mean, like, I don't think that this Giants team is just completely and utterly terrible, top to bottom. I mean, they certainly still have Saquon Barkley. They certainly still have Evan Ingram, and they have Sterling Shepard. I mean, there are guys that can move the ball on offense. I don't think it's one of these situations where they're going to be just completely shut out or anything like that. And then on the other side of the ball with the Cowboys, I mean, listen, I know that he's been working out with Marshall Faulk on the beach and Cabo and things like that. But, I mean, you know, Zeke has not stepped on the field, and he's not even been in practice with these guys to get hit or hit someone or anything like that. And, you know, so for me, I think there might even be a little bit of an adjustment period for Zeke coming back here for the Cowboys, even though he has been there. You know, it's just a completely different situation, stepping on a real football field and getting hit and hitting someone else. And maybe there's some different plays this year that they've added to the playbook, and actually being able to run through those with your quarterback and with the people that are going to be on the field. I think you can't just discredit what being in camp actually can mean for a player here. So again, that was my thought on this one. This was the last one that made my 5. So I'm not married to it one way or the other.
Yeah, the big thing for the Giants for me is the offensive line. This is probably the best it has looked in years. They added Zeitler in that trade for OBJ. So, you know, that's probably the biggest thing for me. I think, you know, this is a game where Saquon could eat, even though he's facing off against these, you know, elite Dallas linebackers. So I think the Giants could keep this one close.
All right, let's hear your Titans plus 5.5 here.
So I'm fading the public on this one. The Browns hype is definitely baked into this line. Yes, this Cleveland team looks outstanding on paper, but we haven't seen it yet. And now reports that Odell Beckham is already dealing with a hip issue that's limiting his flexibility and you know, ability to make cuts. I'm pretty high on this Titans defense. We're actually getting a better number here at Circa than, you know, we could get at the Westgate contest. I like the points here with I guess you could call them an above average team against, you know, a Browns team that has a lot of potential. But until we see it, I'm not ready to buy in yet. I know you feel differently. I know you love this Browns team this year, but I'm just not ready yet.
I do love the Browns team. I actually, the other thing is I just hate this Titans team more than I even love the Browns team here. Interesting for you that you say it's an above average team. I actually think this Titans, I actually feel like this team has the biggest potential for things to just completely go off the rails this year. That quarterback situation is maybe the worst in the entire NFL, because if you have 2 quarterbacks, then you have no quarterbacks. And when you have Marcus Mariota looking over his shoulder at Ryan Tannehill, and then the other option, by the way, that you're going to go to is Ryan Tannehill, really? That's the other option for this team. And so for me, just from an offensive perspective, I just don't know how they're going to put points on the board. I mean, yeah, Derrick Henry is certainly talented, but they don't want to give him the bulk of the workload. I mean, again, this could change this year, but if we look at last season, despite the fact that all you had to do was watch a few different games and see that he was by far the most talented guy on the field, and they still want to continue to force feed Dion Lewis carries and give him touches when really it was just ineffective and more times than not. And Derrick Henry was actually the one who was getting stuff done here. I do understand you have Corey Davis. I understand you've got a playmaker there, but again, you have to get somebody the ball. I mean, you have to be able to get him the ball. And so more than anything, while I do think the Titans defense has something going for it, I just don't know how the Titans are going to put points on the board this season. I am very, very down on this offense. I've been down on Marcus Mariota basically since he came into the league here.
Oh yeah, he's terrible.
And against a Browns defense that certainly is improved as well. You know, I mean, they added some pieces as well to this Browns defense. So I don't know. I guess my thought here with that game is not so much that I'm in love with the Browns minus 5.5 as I am just how in the hell are the Titans going to score?
Yeah, no, I get it. And that the offense is definitely an issue. This is more of me just buying into a defense that is certainly on the rise. And I don't love what I'm seeing here out of this Browns offensive line. And then you got the Beckham injury as well. I'm more interested in I guess having a team on the card that nobody else is going to have, and kind of being a little contrarian with my pick here.
Yeah, and so look, I said that the Giants +7 was the last thing to make my card, and so I'm obviously not incredibly married to that pick in the least bit here. News coming through, with this Antonio Brown thing, made the Broncos interesting to me. I will admit that was nearly the fifth pick. If there was a 5B or a sixth pick, it would have been. And I understand we're not getting the best of the number here with Broncos -2.5, but still, it is under a field goal. It's under a key number, and you and I both think this Raiders team is just going to be a complete dumpster fire. And then now this whole Antonio Brown situation pretty much is playing out like we thought that this team is going to be a complete dumpster fire here. So that one nearly made my card, and I would have been, had that been on your card, I would have gladly have given in and said, okay, Broncos -2.5. I'm completely fine with that.
It's the Broncos Raiders is so interesting because the Westgate had that as a pick, and that made my card over there. But I kind of like it here as well because I don't think people are going to fall in love with the number as much. So I think we'll get the Broncos at lower ownership in this contest, and I still like them too.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this, it's kind of like, people might look at this and say, okay, well, it's a pick.
We didn't get,
a pick across the street. So let's talk. All right. So those being our three options: Titans +5.5, Giants +7, and then Broncos -2.5. If I had to, I would go Broncos 2.5 here. But if you're still feeling the Titans 5.5, I will in this instance, I will acquiesce to that pick.
No, let's go Broncos. I'm more comfortable with that one.
Okay. All right. So there is our card then, and a card that I feel actually pretty happy with and I like a lot. We're going with Colts +6. That is Brett's make the card pick for sure. Mine is the Lions -2.5, which is the make the card pick here. We're going to go with this Raiders team being a complete dumpster fire, as you heard us kind of talk through here, and just bet against this team, despite the fact that, the contest across the street, we could have gotten a much better number, but still under a field goal here with this Broncos team, -2.5. And then we agreed on two picks, which was really awesome. Ravens -6.5, and then the Bucs a pick 'em here. Certainly this Ravens team going on the road to this Dolphins team that already fire sailed pretty much their entire roster, looking to build for 2 to 3 years from now. I certainly think that this Ravens team is going to get out to a big lead. Again, as we mentioned, the only concern for me is maybe a backdoor cover here. But Brett, I really think that, kind of like you explained, it would not surprise me if this Ravens team, and I might actually look for that line here in just a little bit. I might take an alternative line here. It wouldn't surprise me if this Ravens team won by 17.
Oh, me either. This could absolutely be a blowout because I thought what we said, Ryan Fitzpatrick in negative game flow is capable of throwing 4 or 5 picks. He's also capable of winning this game outright, as he did last year against your Saints in Week 1 as a huge underdog. I just don't see it in Miami. I'm pretty comfortable with the Ravens here.
Yeah, at least last year he had some talent around him, right?
Right, yeah.
There's just no talent around him there. So feeling good about our Week 1 picks here. Again, we will update each week our picks from the previous week, maybe talk through where we went wrong. Of course, any last minute changes we will also talk about as well, should there be some crazy news that comes through by the time we record this and when we actually put our picks in. But 9 times out of 10, these are going to be the picks we put in each and every week. And of course, we don't even have to tell you how we're doing because the standings will be on the website there for the Circa. So you could even look yourself to make sure that we're not doctoring things and fudging things here. And it's going to be fun, Brad. I'm looking forward to it. And hopefully, listen, I'm not going to sit here and try to say, hopefully we can bank the $1 million. Of course, hopefully we can bank the $1 million, but really going after one of these quarterly prizes is something. And I think certainly once the season gets going, you and I are pretty good at deciphering information and kind of figuring things out or whatever. I think that the second quarter and the third quarter quarterly prizes are kind of calling our name, man. I'm feeling one of those quarterly prizes.
Oh, I'm going after the Millie. and that's one thing that we'll be talking about throughout the year is kind of the game theory side of it. This is such a top heavy payout that I might do a few weird things just to go against the public, just to kind of get some leverage on what everybody else is doing. But for the most part, we'll be talking about what our plays would actually be.
Again, head to thelines.com for all of your sports book news and sports industry news of things that are going on, weird things, awesome things, fun things. We keep track of all of that. If you're looking for some plays, of course, head to playpicks.com. And if you're listening to this on the YouTube channel, well, thank you for coming back this NFL season. Appreciate you listening on YouTube. And if you are listening to this on your favorite podcast app, well, we appreciate you being a subscriber and following us there. For Brett, I'm Matt. Talk to you guys next week.